Good afternoon and welcome to our panel entitled X-Chair Home Office Revolution and Traditional Office Evolution. Thanks to CES for putting on this amazing digital trade show, and thank you to the panelists that are joining today. Just to give a quick background on the topic, as we all know, last spring, our work from home and work from office habits kind of changed inexorably, and really a trend or pattern that had been in place for a number of years was accelerated very quickly. And whereas really work from home was the purview of executives and independent contractors and creative people, it's quickly become the domain of all of us, or just about all of us. And so today what we'd love to do is to talk around what's happened over the past 9 months and how it's impacted the office per se, whether that be your home office or your work office, and then really spend some time thinking about getting viewpoints from our expert panel on where we think this is going in the future. We have a really diverse panel, a number of interesting different industries represented. As a note, the panel is also geographically diverse. We have people on the east, west, and from the east, the west, and the middle of the country. So that's sort of emblematic of where we are today. My name is Tony Maslish. I am the CEO of Future Seating and X-Chair and Mavix. And X-Chair is a home office chair manufacturer, and Mavix manufactures gaming chairs. We have Joy, I should have checked how to make sure I say your name correctly, but it's Joy Bosey. Is that correct? Or both? She's a leading ergonomics consultant with over 20 years of experience, has worked with major corporations from Toyota to Bank of America, and brings a perspective on what it takes to set up a correct or to live in ergonomic harmony. We have Jordan Goldstein, who is the Principal and Global Director of Design for Gensler. Gensler, as many know, is a worldwide design firm with, I believe, about 50 offices and over 5,000 employees. We have Charlie Lawrence, who is the President of WorkRight Ergonomics. And Charlie, I wanted to read this quote from your website. "No one knows ergonomics better than WorkRight. It's not just what we do," or I'm going to get this wrong, it's all we do, I think. Ranga Badla, who's the Vice President of Field Engagement and Marketing at NetSuite Oracle. NetSuite and Oracle, a global software provider, and Ranga heads up go-to-market strategy across industries. So he is daily communicating with and thinking about people from a really wide variety of industries and helping them figure out how to manage their far-flung businesses. And then Jennifer Lopez from Astrobotic, which is, so two cool things. One, obviously Jennifer has an out-of-this-world name, and she works for an out-of-this-world company. Astrobotic is one of a handful of companies that are leading the sort of re-entry into space by our country, private companies that have been contracted by the government, and Astrobotic is focused on moon missions. So with that, I will turn it over to each of you to just take a moment to tell us a little bit more about yourself and your perspective on the house, and then we'll jump into questions. Jordan, if you want to go first, that'd be great.
Sure, Tony, thanks, and great to be with everybody today. So as Tony mentioned, we're a global design firm. We're actually the world's largest architecture and design and strategy firm. I'm based in Washington, D.C., but we do have 50 offices around the world. But I would say, given where we are today, we have over 5,000 offices around the world because everybody is sitting at their dining room tables. So my focus has really been looking at really the kind of how do we take the power of design to elevate the human experience. And what does that mean for places, spaces, and objects? So whether that's buildings or the workplaces that we are all addressing these days, or the residential settings that we're trying to adjust to make sure that we can work from home and have home accommodate work. Great to be with you.
Welcome, Jordan. And Charlie.
Thanks, Tony. Workrite Ergonomics is one of the largest providers to the office furniture industry. We're a specialist, like Tony said, and he did a quite good job on the quote, we're focused on office ergonomics exclusively. So we compete in the office furniture industry, but we're a specialist that focuses on providing healthful solutions to keep people productive and healthy in their work environment. And now that involves, like Tony said, it involves all our homes now too. So that it's added a completely different dimension. And look forward to sharing some of our insights and our research and experience in the industry with the group.
Terrific. Welcome, Charlie. And Jennifer?
Great. Yes, I was on mute. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Tony and X-Chair and CS for hosting this session. I'm looking forward to the discussion. So as you mentioned, I work for an out-of-this-world company, Astrobotic. We're a 13-year-old lunar logistics and space robotics technology company. I'm actually currently based in New York City, but our headquarters is in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And our mission and vision is to make the moon and space robotics, to make space accessible to the world. We're essentially pioneering moon delivery. So since our inception, we've secured over 30 contracts with NASA, and we're the only company alongside some other larger aerospace companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin, Lockheed Martin, and others that are part of what's called NASA's Commercial Lunar Payload Services Program, or CLPS. So we're the only company that has 3 booked missions to the moon, starting with our inaugural mission, Peregrine Mission 1, launching in Q4 later this year. We have over 22 payloads and 6 nations participating, and other 2 missions in 2022 and in 2023, which is taking NASA's first ever lunar rover to the surface of the moon to search for water ice in the South Pole. So very exciting, and looking forward to talking more and looking forward to the discussion.
Welcome, Jennifer. And it's fitting as a moon mission, representing a moon mission company, that there was a little bit of your connection got a little warbly. It sounded like it was the 60s with Men on the Moon, so.
Oh no.
That was
I
good for a
apologize.
moment there.
How appropriate.
Joy, how about you go next?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tony, for allowing me to be a part of this exciting panel. Yes, I've been in the office ergonomic and industrial industry for over 20 years. And I recall the call that came in mid-March with one of my biggest customers, asking if we could immediately pivot all of our on-site ergonomic consultants and assessments to completely virtual. So within a week, we were able to convert through software and technology what I call a human factor virtual experience at home. Since then, we've conducted over 2,500 virtual work from home assessments, and we're also helping build corporate strategies of what it looks like to re-entry back into the workplace. So I'm very excited to be a part of this panel and to share with you some of my lessons learned.
Great, thank you, Joy. That's an interesting story and a good kickoff. And so before we dive into the questions, Ranga, we all know about your company in some way, shape, or form, I'm sure. Tell us a little more.
Sure. Thank you so much, Tony, and also really excited to be part of this panel and part of this conversation. It's a great panel and a lot of diverse opinions and conversations. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from the other panelists. So I run industry and field marketing within NetSuite, and for those that aren't familiar with NetSuite, we operate as part of Oracle. We service about 24,000 organizations around the world across a number of different industries. And in my role, I get the unique privilege of getting to talk to a number of those different customers and what they're doing and how they are operating. And in particular, because what we provide is cloud applications, we provide cloud business management services. Much of what we provide has enabled a lot of our customers to be able to operate remotely and to be able to run their business remotely. From going from one location or 50 locations to 5,000 locations, as the case might be, as Jordan brought up. That's sort of the model that we've had across a number of our customers, and so I've been able to get to watch that and have those conversations and really get to see how it varies from companies as varied as tech companies to packaging and manufacturing companies. So it's been a unique time, and glad and happy to share that with the group.
That's great. Thank you for joining us. So I'd love to just dive in, and Charlie, I'm curious from your perspective, running a furniture company, what has the impact been on the furniture industry in general? And then, for an ergonomic company like yours, how has it had a particular impact on you all?
Yeah, Tony, thanks. Yeah, it's obviously with the whole work from home phenomenon and the impact COVID's had, it's really changed the office furniture industry in a dramatic way. And I think it's going to change the commercial real estate industry. And I think some of the changes are going to be permanent, very frankly. There's a lot of time spent over the past decade on making the office look almost like a student union building, where people were sitting around and collaborating and more relaxed and casual, but in large groups and in close proximity to each other. And now I think there's going to be a revisiting of all that. And the way we've been thinking about it here recently at Workrite is that for a lot of years, there's been a lot of pressure on organizations for flex time. Come in a little late, maybe work 4-day weeks, things like that. And some organizations, there was a lot of resistance to that because there was a fear for loss of control. But our belief and our research tells us that COVID has been the ultimate test case of whether people could work remotely and be productive. And I think it's been, in many cases, a huge success. And I think that's going to dramatically change the face of how corporate America thinks about its administrative staff. So I think flex time, or whatever we're going to call it in the future, is going to be a permanent fixture for us. We've taught clients that talk about maybe we're going to let everybody work from home Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and Tuesday, Thursdays are going to be in-person days so we can have face-to-face meetings, or some version of that. Obviously, every industry is a little bit different. Every functional job is a little bit different, but there are some common themes that are starting to develop as we talk to our corporate clients.
So picking up on what you're saying about flex time, I'm curious, Joy, as you're talking to lots of major companies, are they just making temporary shifts? It's sort of like, okay, how do we get through this? Or are they really taking seriously what Charlie's talking about and thinking about how it's going to look differently in the future? And also, to another point that he mentioned, how do you think it's going to impact productivity and people's health in general?
Absolutely. I think a month into the pandemic, people weren't really thinking of, do I need to focus on the work environment to people in their homes? I think they were coming to us saying, hey, listen, we don't think you really need to do anything to help our employees right now. They've only been at home for 1 month. They have their simple tools that we provided them, and we think they should be fine. However, 2 to 3 months later, the calls started coming in. The big corporations were coming to us saying, hey, listen, this is not just a 1-month temporary transition. This appears to be, it may go 3, 6, even 12 months. And E3, we need to work closely with you in coming up with the plan. So what we decided to do was to help organizations create what we called a work from home program, and what that involved. We were setting up meetings immediately with the senior leadership team, with HR, IT, facilities, procurement, to come up with some goals together of how we could best support the work from home environment. A lot of the employees started to share with us they really enjoyed the work-life balance of working from home and having time to be with their family and choosing the types of calls and meetings they wanted to take. So it was starting to become much more of a positive turn for how people approach their new work from home life. As far as productivity goes, I still think that's still unseen. Companies are trying to look for ways to be able to create matrices and ways to track people's performance. I know as a fact for somebody like me, I have noticed I'm working longer hours because I am working from home. The time goes very quickly, but I try to encourage people to get up and move. You know, we always tell people the best posture is the next posture, and you want to be able to improve your overall stress levels by movement and actually helping manage your work environment. So I see down the road, this tradition of working traditional is definitely going away. People are really pushing work-life balance. And I envision, like Charlie mentioned, more of a hybrid approach. Companies now, such as Toyota, we're working on these strategies of what it looks like with re-entry in 6 months. And how are we going to address the people that are working from home? Are they going to be able to keep the ergonomic tools that they were given 6 months ago? Or is the company going to have to come up with a way to help companies and employees be able to buy new furniture and work tools for their home environment on a more permanent basis?
Well, I like the natural plug for buying furniture, you know, and you all are sitting in comfortable X chairs. I'm glad to see everybody in their X chairs. So it is certainly our hope that companies make that investment. Jordan, kind of piggybacking off of what Joy and Charlie were saying, and also your introduction where you said you've gone from having 50 offices to 5,000. How does this, sort of a two-part question, how does this look in the way spaces are designed? And, you know, how do you all see yourselves plugging into that? Like the design of the home office, I think, has traditionally been the purview of kind of a different level of architecture and design kind of provider. And then, and what changes in the offices that you've built and are building so that they can meet this need in the future?
Yeah, sure, Tony. You know, it's a result of COVID-19. You know, I think it's safe to say that the workplace will be forever changed, and it's a moment to turn crisis into opportunity, and to think about how we can, you know, look at the workplace and look at this opportunity as a chance to fix what wasn't working in the office before, and be able to also recognize that the hybrid situation of people being at home and also being others being at work post-pandemic, that's going to be a reality that we're going to be seeing, I think, across the world, you know, once we get past this pandemic. So being able to recognize what does that mean for workplace? You know, for heads down focused work, we may be doing that even more at home in a post-pandemic scenario than we were pre-pandemic. But what does that mean for the new role of workplace? You know, as a research-driven design firm, we've been doing a lot of study on this and quite a few surveys, both in the U.S. and abroad. You know, one of the things we find is that there's an interest as you know, the role of workplace to meet with colleagues, strengthen relationships, socialize with colleagues, innovate and collaborate. You know, coaching and learning and mentoring to happen in that context. The workplace is a place to really reinforce brand and culture. But yet the home environment, as we're seeing now, can be a productive extension of that workplace environment. So how does that set up a scenario where, you know, those that are at home can feel like they are participating in a hybrid workplace post-pandemic in an equitable way? So I think it will lead to transformations of conference rooms and team rooms. So it's not the 42-inch flat screen on the wall anymore. You know, you go into those rooms and it's set up so that all participants, whether you're virtual or physical, can be equal parts players in whatever the work is that's going on. I think the other thing that we're seeing is companies really thinking about what does it mean to create a work from home toolkit for their employees that combines the digital tools, the furniture, and the decor and the enhanced conferencing that allow there to be that kind of digital twinning of the person that's at home and then the person that's going to be in the physical environment, so that collaboration can continue and innovation can really thrive in a post-pandemic reality.
So that's a great segue talking about the toolkit to Jennifer and Astrobotic. You all are in a kind of unique position. So as a customer of XChair, you bought chairs for the traditional office during the pandemic, but I know that you also have a number of people working from home, where you have something like a control room that traditionally has needed people, mission control room where everybody needs to be together. How are you all managing that? And Jordan's idea of a toolkit, is that something that you're focused on providing for people when they're working at home?
Absolutely. And I think that the digital toolkit is actually one of the things I was thinking of earlier. I think with the onset of the pandemic, I think we were already trending somewhat, at least to this hybrid work environment, working from home or working remotely, as well as having the still accessing the physical space. But I think with the onset of the pandemic, that that time frame was crunched. As Joey was mentioning, in this onset of a longer time frame into a few months. Where we were, pushed to have to figure out how to adapt. And in our situation, we're in a bit of a unique situation with our company. We're deemed an essential business as part of the government with our government contract with NASA, and of course with our upcoming lunar missions, with these lunar delivery missions, we are already in the process of expanding our operations because we've had a number of contracts with NASA ongoing, and then, like I said, with the onset of our upcoming lunar mission later this year, or launch later this year. So we were already in the process of trying to expand with our office space and looking at different locations within the Pittsburgh area, and we were able to find a 47,000 square foot facility that's able to house our company's spacecraft integration clean rooms and test facilities with lab spaces, rover test labs and payload operations rooms. And you mentioned the mission control space. So we have a dedicated mission control center where this facility marks the next phase of our company's growth. And we're looking at it as it's going to be the primary hub for lunar logistics in the United States, if not globally. So our headquarters will serve as this space and be able to for us to be able to support up to 4 lunar lander missions simultaneously. So it was a bit of a unique situation because of the timing, the overlap with the onset of the pandemic. We were already looking at expanding into this area or into this building, and then with the timing in terms of construction and so forth, it just so happened that was finalized in May of this past year. So we actually had our opening at that point, and we're looking at making sure that we created the space that was appropriate, to support our engineers and to support our technical leads while we have this pandemic situation happening simultaneously. So of course it was that was the at least the background for us of why we wanted to select a company like XChair as our seating partner. We knew that in order for us, we have this important space with mission control that's essentially going to be the nerve center for the first U.S. missions to the lunar surface of Apollo, and with these mission controllers that are going to be operating the first commercial moon landing as the world watches. We wanted to ensure that we had the appropriate seating for that space. And creating that work environment, in terms of performance, and since that's a critical aspect of our mission. But at the same time, we were also making sure that we're adhering, based on what was happening in terms of the onset of the pandemic, adhering to CDC guidelines and state, local guidelines, and also creating that work environment for the employees that were not able to be able to come in and be there physically, as we're still having to have some of our staff to build, to create the hardware and build our spacecraft for our mission later this year. So that's something that we're continuing to look at. You mentioned the digital toolkit earlier. I think where our leadership is really trying to see how can we continue to maintain that work environment if it's not just with some of these tools, but other health and wellness and other aspects that we can incorporate to make sure that there's that inclusivity and make sure that employees feel that they're still part of the team, even though that there's the the sort of, the disparate locations with our employees spread throughout the country. So we're still looking into those tools and continuing to see how we can develop that even as we start to get, once we get COVID-19 a bit more under control coming into this year.
Well, it's interesting to hear how, your particular company is struggling with it. And it's striking to me that space exploration is really the original remote working test that was done.
Indeed.
And,
Indeed.
I would say that NetSuite is perhaps as a follow-on, not the original, but one of the early kind of adopters of really making it so that companies can operate remotely. So you guys were kind of in the sweet spot when this happened, Ranga, and I'm curious, do you have customers, were your customers just ready to roll, or do you have customers who really changed their behavior and the way that they use the software with their employees? And B, how has it changed the way everyone at NetSuite itself works and does their job?
So I'll take thanks, Tony, for that. I'll take the first one, in terms of how has it impacted our customers, and there's some of the folks that we've talked to where even though they were using NetSuite and it enabled them to have multiple locations and they could just access it from anywhere, you had a lot of folks that were used to, hey, we got to have everybody in the office. That's how I run things. Everybody's always there. And so for a lot of folks, it was a change. Even if they had the technology to support it, they did change things where now they needed to, and we saw this particularly with manufacturers and distributors, where you've got folks that need to be in the warehouse, people that need to be on the manufacturing floor. You have a set of employees that there is no work from home. There is no remote work for those folks. But you need to make sure that those folks can stay safe. And so what we saw changing was a lot of folks thinking about how do they send home administrative staff, folks that don't have to be physically there. And that was some of the changes that we did see in our customers. We also saw not just our customers, but the folks that we were talking to where, Joy brought this up, that there was a lot of folks kind of thinking about, hey, this is just temporary. And what also kind of, there was the conversation about the temporary aspect from a physical perspective, but there's also the temporary aspect from a digital perspective, and that what solutions may be there to support, just a handful of folks that might be remote now had to be solutions that could support the entire organization remotely. And so that's kind of changed the conversation as well. That's forced a very different approach when you're looking at solutions is that, are they going to support, they don't need to just support a handful of people working remotely or working from different locations. They need to support everybody being able to work, from a different location. They need to be able to support the 5,000 locations, not the 50. And so that was an interesting change. And then for NetSuite itself, it's interesting. It hasn't really, we're obviously all not on planes anymore. We're not really visiting different offices. But as an organization, we've always had people all around the world in multiple locations. We've got a ton of different offices, both nationally and even geographically across the world. And so from that standpoint, it hasn't changed that. What it has done though is we're not on site. We're not physically meeting with folks. We are driving everything virtually. But we had a good foundation for that up to this point, because that's been the model. I mean, we as a company we're not taking the approach of we just sent an army of consultants on site and they were always on site for 6 months. We were used to, we might go and do a kickoff meeting and then come back and do the work remotely, and then maybe come back to make sure it works. Well, now we don't have that kickoff meeting live. We have it remotely. That's the change that's happening there. But I would say it's really been it has been a change of conversations. This move from what was really thought of just a temporary fix to much more of, hey, we've got to support a much longer runway here.
This is permanent now. So I apologize. I clearly am not a good time manager for to create a really, enough time for a lot of the questions. I just want to do, I think we can go a minute or two over, and I'd just like to do a lightning round. So kind of keep your thoughts to 30 seconds. Push out 5 to 10 years. How does your job or your business look different? And we'll just go around the horn based on the way you appear on my screen. And Jordan, you go first.
So I think that we see more of a borderless scenario where people are collaborating and working across the global spectrum, and it's the right people, the right team, the right place at the right time. So bringing together from wherever you are, whether you're at home or whether you're in the office, being able to have a greater fluidity in how work gets done and how collaboration happens globally.
Ranga, back to you.
I would say I see us moving more towards an empathetic culture in the workplace. This has really opened up people's eyes about what our home and work environments look like, and frankly, it's really opened up companies' eyes to we're all people, and we're seeing that side of people's work, and I think that's really important.
Joy, I think you smiled when he said empathetic.
Well, at the end of the day, we all want to be heard. And, ergonomics has always been, about 10 years ago, people didn't care so much about ergonomics, but really it involves the psychosocial factors, your stress level, your physical activity, your mental wellness. And I think now is a great changing time for employees to be able to have a say of what their new corporate culture looks like and to be a part of that conversation. So I'm thrilled. I think with technology, with people being able to have tools such as sensors and things to give them real-time data based on how they're currently feeling, eventually creating a work environment that can give you real live data of ways to make improvements in your work environment, your lighting levels, your security, your digital interface. I'm excited for the future, and I think there's great opportunities, and I'm proud to be a part of it. So thank you.
Jennifer, your business is the future. What does it look like?
Indeed. I think my fellow panelists have been saying it well, and I would also agree with more of an empathetic workplace, more of a distributed workforce that we'll be seeing. Hopefully, more companies be adopting this hybrid working environment, remote as well as in a physical workplace, and seeing how we could create. Even though with companies like ours, we've been a bit of an outlier, as I mentioned before. But I think more organizations to be able to create sense of contribution. I was mentioning how we're trying to have our employees, the ones that are working remotely and not physically able to be at our headquarters, to have that translate into this. How can we have that translate into organizational performance, including mentioning the digital toolkit, designing well-being into the work itself, so that connectivity or promoting connectivity, increasing employee autonomy, and flexible scheduling, remote work opportunities, and then of course how we're going to be seeing the redesign of the physical workplace in the future.
So redesign kicks it. Charlie, you can just say everyone's going to have a work-right sit-stand desk and an X chair in the future. Anything else that you see? You're muted, Charlie.
Yep, I absolutely support everybody having an X chair and a work-right sit-stand desk. So, but no, all kidding aside, I think if we thought the past couple decades were explosive as far as the advancement of technology and how we interact as human beings with technology, I think it's going to be on steroids in the next 10 years, because I think COVID has forced us to think differently about how we interact as human beings, how we get work done, where we get work done, and I think there's going to be just a real step change in how all this comes together. So.
That's a great note to end on. Thank you all so much for participating. and for your insights. And we can keep talking once we're offline. But thanks again to CES, and have a comfortable day, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Tony, for hosting.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.